Hey kids, welcome to Movie Club Monday. Today we're continuing our 2022 project, which is torturing each other with the movies we suggest we watch. I'm Frank Gaffney. Here with me is Amy Goldman and her good boy. You'll see his anus any minute now. Joel Fenster here and his dog. That's okay. It's a stuffed animal, but it looks so real. And Annie King, who put on lipstick today even. And our special guest today is Joe Caputo, who's a fan of this movie, which was suggested by Mark Wotitz Gartner. And today's choice is Mark's choice, and that is Split, which in IMDb actually says it was released in 2016 and 2017, because it had some previews, I guess, and then didn't officially get released till January, when they realized James McAvoy was never going to get nominated for an Oscar. Mark, why did you make us watch Split?
Well, I got four reasons actually. First of which, I knew at least two of you had never seen the movie before, and I thought you'd enjoy it. And it wound up being all four of you did not, so that was extra icing on the cake.
Well, Joe had seen it, obviously.
Oh yes. The resurgence of M. Night Shyamalan. I thought this was his best film in 16, 17 years. Two words, James McAvoy. I loved him in this. I thought he was fantastic.
Well, we get into the review. Yeah.
No. Real quick. And lastly, the mind-body connection, the influence that the mind has over the body. It's a topic that I've read up on quite a bit, and I find very interesting. So it's kind of a take on that in this movie.
Okay. Well, as usual, I go first. I definitely give my propers to M. Night because he knows how to work the camera and make it creepy. That whole opening segment was really, the pre-title segments was perfectly creepy. It was great. You knew there was doom in every moment of that thing. And I didn't even know Anna Taylor-Joy before Queen's Gambit. So this is only my second time seeing her. And it was so funny to see her as a teenager, but I think she did a very good job. But yes, it was James McAvoy who completely blew me away, and how he was not nominated for an Oscar, I really don't understand. But we often speak about the Academy's idiocy when it comes to nominations. So, but that same year, Daniel Kaluuya was nominated for Get Out. So they do nominate genre films, but just not this one. All right, let's start with that abduction. So it's a pretty crowded parking lot in the mall. And nobody notices what happens to the father, that the girls are getting abducted, nothing. Nobody notices anything. And then we see Betty Buckley, and she's in her 60s. She walks up 3 flights of stairs and she's not even winded when she gets there. I'm like, I can't even get through 2 dances at the clubhouse without sitting down. And she's perfectly like, hey. And when they're in the cell, one girl says, one girl says, let's drop a crazy ass bomb on him. May I suggest making him watch all of the M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong movies? That would kill anybody. That should do it. All right, so and this was something that I read about how the psychiatric community was a little up in arms about M. Night playing fast and loose with this with DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, which we used to just call multiple personality disorder. So help me. This is what I did not understand. Does the current personality know about all the other personalities? And where does he keep the wardrobe for each of them to change every time at the zoo?
I think the quick answer is that, yes, they know that they are one of the horde, as they call themselves, but they don't necessarily know what they do when the other person takes the light. That's my take on it. So yes, they know that one person is in there now, but you didn't know what just happened when someone else was speaking through his body.
Yeah. But there are times when one character will say that the other character is doing this or that. There are times, like when Hedwig definitely said, you know, Patricia's doing this or whatever. So there was definitely, so he, I think, played a little fast and loose with his own rules of what he was doing.
Yeah, there's
I
a
think I wanna-
within that horde. Kevin doesn't know about the existence of everybody, but everybody knows about the existence of Kevin
Right.
and is there to protect Kevin, which is a little different from some of the research cases of DID I've seen. It is possible to not be aware, but generally they share the same body and interact with the same people, and then the same people tell you about them. So with this case of DID, where someone is solo and alone and you don't see even his social life put him in a very different aspect to what someone who undergoes DID would actually
So
live
you're
in.
saying this is kind of the extreme example. So he did
It's an
take some
extreme
liberties. Yeah, he did take some.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, but here, so Hedwig alludes to them that and this is one of the moments where he is very cognizant of what's going on. He alludes to following the girls for 4 days. And I want to go back to why he thought the mall was the most convenient place to take them, especially since the dad was with them. I'm just saying, if he was following them. And I'm going back to the clothing change because it took him like 30 seconds to change clothes from being Hedwig to being Dennis. I'm like, I think one of his superpowers is how quickly he can change clothes.
Well, there was a whole rack of clothes and stuff, I think, towards the end, like they spanned and you could see the whole rack of all the different clothes.
In 30 seconds. You don't get that backstage at curtain call.
Yeah. His base layer skills are godly.
And this is exactly why I think Mark liked the movie, because he makes Claire take off that dirty sweater. I'm like, you got 3 young girls, you better see some boobage or something. And then Betty Buckley gives her whole lecture over Skype. I'm sure they're kicking themselves for missing all of that COVID's money that Zoom took over. Poor Skype. And then of course M. Night pulls a little Tarantino and puts him in the movie. Is he in every movie of his as well?
He always comes in for like one little bit part.
Yeah, but you know, some struggling actor, Joe Caputo, could have earned his SAG card by being in this damn movie, but no.
I think it's one of those things, like, when people started calling him like the next Alfred Hitchcock, it went to his head and he's like, oh, Hitchcock was in all of his films, except for the fact that Hitchcock walked through the frame and that's all you saw.
Never spoke. I would prefer that. I would prefer that.
Hitchcock did background. M. Night is doing like under Hitchcock did background in his films, but M. Night is doing like under and over 5s and things that like for the
he wants to keep his SAG card. That's what it is. Yeah. He wants to keep his SAG card. And then they're in the kitchen, and with all the potential weapons in the kitchen, Marsha goes for the clunky folding chair, which we all know doesn't even work at the WWE. Really. I have to also say that Betty Buckley is the stupidest character in any movie ever. She goes to the bunker under the zoo. You wouldn't question any of that? She thinks she's just gonna miraculously.
Before we even get to that, personally, I've never been under a zoo, but I would assume that there are other employees at some point that have wandered around, kind of like, what is this new wall doing here, kind of thing.
Yeah, and he puts them in 3 separate rooms. Why didn't he do that in the first place?
Right.
Instead of keeping them all together so they could conspire. Mark, I have another question. I'm sorry. So the Beast wants to rid the world of the untouched. What and why?
The innocent. My take on that is Kevin, the Horde, is suffering. He is not normal. And I think he said it in the beginning, something about the girls that at least the 2, he was not expecting to kidnap Anya Taylor. She was an extra. It was only about the other 2 girls because they were innocent and untouched. And I think he wants to basically make anyone who's innocent or privileged suffer. That's my take on it. And that's why at the end, when he does not kill, he stops, he leaves her alone when she's trapped in the cage, and he sees her scars. He realizes that she's also suffered, you're glorious, or whatever he says to her, and he leaves her alone because he only wants to harm the innocent.
That's a great idea.
Hmm.
Hey, maybe we should introduce him to Sybil. She had 17 personalities. They could hook up individually. Okay, and so I looked at all the stuff on IMDb to write my trivia cards, and only a geek would write this. There is no reason why the other alters couldn't just directly alert Dr. Fletcher of the problem by sending emails about that instead of merely arranging an appointment. Only a
Good
geek
point.
would be concerned about that. All right, so I actually didn't mind it. I'm going with 3 stars on this movie, mostly for the amazing James McAvoy, really. And I wish I remembered even 5 seconds of Unbreakable to make any, comparisons. Or I know it said it was a standalone, blah blah blah, but it really does make references to that movie, doesn't it, Mark?
Well, in the trivia in IMDb, every other trivia line mentioned Unbreakable, and I was like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. It's like a sequel, and I never saw Unbreakable, so I missed a lot.
Yeah, and the only reason that it's rare that I would suggest the second movie in a trilogy, right?
Yeah.
So
Damn you, Mark Wotis Gartner, for making us watch a sequel when we didn't even watch the first movie.
The only real connection is that very end scene with Bruce Willis and the fact that it takes place in Philadelphia.
So this becomes the M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong twist.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. No one was informed this was a sequel.
Yeah.
This was advertised as its own movie. It was released as its own movie. And then you hear everyone in the seats, and 70 people will be like, why is Bruce Willis in 2 seconds of this movie?
Yeah. I mean, it's like all of those stupid end credits for MCU.
Yeah.
It's going to be the next movie. But and was there some connection to the X-Men?
Yes, James McAvoy.
Yeah, James McAvoy.
Oh, so the Beast is not part of that.
Well, there is a Beast in the X-Men, but he's completely different.
It's not this Beast.
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's my thoughts. 3 stars. Aim, did you care
What means I care?
about the
I
movie?
care.
About the movie.
Well, first of all, I went into it. I remember when it came out. I remember not reading anything about it because I don't want to know how a night movie is going to end. And I read that.
Right. So you're like, oh, so that's what this movie's about.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
In 6 episodes of The Twilight Zone, you can figure it out from the preview.
But I did read that it wasn't a typical M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong type twisty end. But and I read that a lot of the reviews were it was decently reviewed. So I went into it really not knowing anything about it except that he plays a guy with multiple personalities. So at the end, when the guy came in and said, "What are you doing in there?" or something, whatever it was, when the guy discovered our heroine, I thought, oh my God, is she in the zoo? What's going on? Is that the big twist that it's all in her head? And James McAvoy doesn't even exist. That's where my head was going. And then it really didn't end up being the case. I found the movie up until the last 20 or 30 minutes, which was interesting because when I started looking at people's reviews, they were talking about the last 20 or 30 minutes, but I didn't know that going into it. And at that moment, I was like, okay, this is really boring. This has to end. I was so bored in the last half hour. I was bored kind of throughout the movie. What else was I gonna say? Shit, I don't remember. But I just, and when he turned into the Beast, all of his wonderful acting to me went right out the window. He was so over the top and spitting, and I was like, okay, ugh. So I didn't understand who the Beast was anymore. I didn't know what the hell was going on. So I only give it 2 stars. I'm sorry. I was just like, I'm not liking this movie throughout most.
Yeah,
of
but
it.
you know, that's
Poor
exactly
boy.
how Joe Caputo gets when he doesn't have coffee in the morning. So
That's true. Just have my cup right here,
exactly.
climbing all over the ceiling looking for coffee grinds.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say. That's why I thought it was all in her head, and this character didn't exist, because who the hell can
Climb the
completely
walls.
climb walls and turn into this huge monster, climbing the walls? And then
Hold
he's
on, hold
supposed to
on, hold on.
actually be
What's
real?
interesting about that, though,
Literally climbing the walls.
there's a
Yeah.
TV show called Stanley's Superhumans, which isn't the only place to find this kind of content, but there are people around the world who do exhibit strange skills. And there's a person, I think, in India known as like the Monkey Man. And he's known for having I think 1.5 times the muscle mass in his hands. And he can climb vertical surfaces and poorly, the wrong kind of pitch surfaces. And people are like, this dude's Spider-Man. So all of the things that in Split that are done, other than maybe the bar sequence, which is explained in the next film, which we don't need to open up because that's its own bag of worms, are things
Yeah,
that
that killed me too. I'm like, he's gonna pull the bars open. Come
Yeah.
on.
all of those things have been documented.
Humans
can
Mark,
come
maybe
from
Mark,
something.
maybe you should try it because you might have twice the hand straight from all the masturbation.
And I have tried it, unfortunately.
That's not
But wait, I just want to say,
Mark,
go
is
back
that
to
your O face behind you?
nice. You got to remember, and this is the only reason that I thought about doing Unbreakable first, is that in this universe, right, superhuman powers are possible. So you got to think of it like the Avengers or whatever it is. In Unbreakable, Bruce Willis is basically invulnerable, and he has superhuman strength. So if you're in that universe, you have to have suspension of disbelief, right, and know that this is possible in this world.
Yes,
part
but
of
we
the-
didn't
part of
know
the
we were
problem
in
is
that universe.
Most people aren't going to know that because
Right.
the twist, as Frank said, is that this is actually connected to a previous movie. So
Mm.
Right.
I almost sent an email to you guys to say, like, keep everything open and whatever, but shit.
I read too that somebody said one of the clues was that the poster for Split is the cracked glass, exactly like Unbreakable.
Mm.
Joel, you're one of these geeks. What is it that you thought of this movie? Hadn't seen it either?
I have not. No, I
I
honestly,
thought that was very unusual for you not to see a genre movie.
it is. It can be unusual for me. My problem is I am not a fan of
M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong.
Yeah, in my opinion, he had 3 really good movies, and then he turned into
A hack.
a hack who says, "Oh, I've hit on something. I've got this one note, and I'm going to nail it into the ground until for mixed metaphors."
Yeah, I
like.
definitely think he had one great idea, The Sixth Sense, which he probably stole from Twilight Zone.
Well, yeah, but I mean, look,
But so did Jordan Peele for Get Out. I mean,
yeah,
so
but there's a difference, I think, between
there's a
what they're
difference in the way the material is presented, of course.
Yes. One of the reasons I didn't see Split before this week was because I honestly stopped watching his movies after the plant one.
The Happening.
Happening.
Yeah, I was like, all right, I'm done. I just can't do these anymore. It's bad Twilight Zone, and I knew that, like, you kind of, again, I said earlier, if you've seen enough episodes of the Twilight Zone, you know where he's going within half an hour. So it's like the twist is nothing. I unfortunately did not see The Sixth Sense until well into its run in the theaters, and about 40 minutes in, I turned to the person I was with. I was like, he's dead. He looked at me like, what? And
Yeah, I had no idea. Amy
There was
dragged
no
me
second
because she
date
was
after
so.
that, after I spoiled it. So, which,
You think there's
fine.
still spoilers 20 years later?
Well, no, not. I was saying, when I said I saw it in the theaters, I saw it in the theaters during its
Oh.
run.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's no
But,
spoil. Well,
but it
I
wasn't like,
it.
in the first
Yeah,
month. It
same.
was like 3 or
Yeah,
4 months
No,
later.
Amy,
So-
Amy dragged me to the movie. She's like, "You gotta see this movie. Everybody ruins it."
But
And you were like,
don't get me
right?
wrong,
It's
I
great.
think The Sixth Sense is a very well crafted
Love it.
film, and I
Love
would
it.
say that it does have it's one of the few ones with a twist that does have some repeatability in it. And I would say the same thing about Unbreakable for me, because that to me is his best film. I know a lot of people find it very slow moving and very methodical and plotting, but there's purpose behind all of it. And I think by the time you hit the end of it, you're kind of like, oh, wow, he's just really made a very tightly constructed, deconstructed superhero film that I think works brilliantly. The other film of his that I think he really needs to go watch again and be like, oh, I used to make movies like this too, is Wide Awake, which is about a kid in a Catholic school with Rosie O'Donnell. It's a comedy drama. It's not the greatest film in the world, but he could make a movie like that again and kind of stop being this.
So are you hoping M. Night will be watching this video so he can get this information?
No, I don't care if he watches this video because fuck him. Who gives a shit?
Back to Split.
Yes, back to Split. Anyway, I didn't watch it because of that. So when Mark was like, all right, yes, I know I finally have to watch it because I love Unbreakable so much. The thing the film has going for it mostly is James McAvoy. That is a tour de force performance up until, as Amy said, the last, 15 minutes or so. It's kind of like, all right, we're just throwing that out of the water and it is what it is. The rest of the film, it's workmanlike. It's kind of like, all right, here's, I'm taking the plot of every serial killer movie you've ever seen and kind of working it into my universe. And there might be a twist, there might not be. I don't know. I'm going to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, because Amy certainly went in with that expectation. She was
sure, and I'm sure a lot of people went in with that expectation.
But then, like I said, I did remember reading in the reviews that this one didn't have that big twist. Even when I got to the zoo, I was like, oh my God, here's the big twist. And then when it wasn't, that's when I remember. But yeah.
But as we all said, the big twist is that, oh, this is actually a sequel, and it's setting up the third film. Right. So,
Well, but I also read, well, obviously, like Mark said, not so much a sequel, but this is the first origin story for a villain.
Yes.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. I was bored at times. I was like, there's nothing on the screen I haven't seen before. I did wonder while watching it what people in the mental health communities thought about it. It came to mind that, are we dealing with similar issues like when Silence of the Lambs came out and people in the LGBTQ and transgender communities were up in arms about Buffalo Bill and things like that. So, but it other than James McAvoy and the connection to Unbreakable, it didn't do much for me. I still haven't seen Glass. I had plenty of time this week to shove it in and go, let's finish this trilogy. And I was like, I got better things to do. So I'm going to give it 2.5 stars, mostly because of James McAvoy's performance. So.
Bitter party of one, Joel would like to have M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong's career.
No.
Annie King, not your genre of movies.
No, definitely. Again, thanks for making me watch something that's not my usual thing.
That's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah. Like I said, I am, unlike Tarantino, I have seen other M. Night movies and I enjoyed Sixth Sense and Unbreakable. I think those are the only
Signs.
No, I don't think I saw that.
I like Signs.
Right. So I went into it thinking, okay, good, something else, but definitely not my type. So like at least 3 points in the movie, I had to leave the room and say, okay, tell me when this is over, But to me, it was like, I'm a huge Criminal Minds fan, if anyone watches that show. And it just felt like a 2-hour episode of Criminal Minds, like Joel said, every serial killer kind of thing. I thought the performance was fantastic. That was really great. And
even the girls too, they were great.
Yeah. The only thing is, like, I got to the end of the movie and I'm like, well, that was kind of disappointing, not realizing that there was a third movie coming up, because I was like, well, that didn't really do anything, at the end. So
didn't conclude.
Right. I was like, oh, that was, but Yes, but it was fine. I watched it. It's not something I would probably go back and watch.
Or recommend to anyone.
Yeah, or recommend. Although I would probably at some time look for Glass, and if it happens to show up without me having to pay for it, then I would try to catch it.
Just to see where he's going.
Yeah.
Just one thing on Glass for both Joel and Andy, if you do. I personally, I did not like it nearly as much as this movie, but it does conclude everything. And just one little bit of trivia: the kid the actor who played his kid in Unbreakable reprises his role now as an adult, still as his kid.
Well, that was probably planned then.
Yes.
For 20 years in the making, sure.
Yeah.
Yes, I thought the whole thing with Casey and her uncle, like that I saw coming a mile away and stuff, but that like she's been living there for how long now? And it's just nobody has helped her, or it was just really
I know that definitely is a definite problem with some victims. Just feel like they have nowhere to go, and this is what they deserve. So they just stay in that situation.
Yet, like as a 6-year-old, she was like pointed a gun at him. She was ready to off him, and that was my big complaint. But 2.75 for me.
By the way, before I forget, speaking of the uncle, the guy Sebastian Arcellus who played her father, I did community theater with him on Long Island.
That's
Great.
funny.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, Joe Caputo, here's your big moment.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Now you said you're a fan of this movie. You wanted to come in and discuss it. So here we are.
Yeah, no, I am a fan. I'm gonna start just because it's fresh, touching on what you were just talking about Anna Taylor-Joy's character and how she was now living in the custody of her uncle. And I also want to touch on what we talked about earlier about like he's in the basement of the zoo. No one notices the new wall. A part of me also raised eyebrows at some of these quote unquote inconsistencies.
Joe, could you do that for us? Raise your eyebrows. Oh,
I
like that.
disappeared a little.
Yeah.
I can.
Oh, there you go.
Better.
I have the Peter Capaldi attack eyebrows. I need to go get them.
Mark doesn't get that reference.
Thank you. Never repairs. I actually loved those. After I thought about it, I loved those inconsistencies because I'm a criminal justice major and I've studied a lot of true crime and I've studied a lot of social services. And I think this movie it's arguable. Everybody has their own personal experiences and those are valid. But this movie did a good job of showing us how systems fail. Of course, this white male who is moderately okay at his job or performs his job, no one looks too deep. Of course, there's a 10-second blip in a crowded parking lot where someone can get cracked in the back of the head and no one notices because now they're under the cover of the SUVs and no one can see it line of sight. Of course that would happen. So I thought a lot of the problems with this film in those structural ways also highlighted what can happen. And it made it more horrifying for me. There are things I love about this film. Obviously, when I am clean shaven and I don't have nail polish and I'm quite nice bald, this is great character for me. I pull them out at parties all the time. Kanye's horrible, almost split-like behavior now has given my Hedwig new material. So it's a fun role. He does a great job. Even when he transitions into the Beast, there's a moment, even if it's a little out there, he deflates into Kevin. And he says, "What year is it? What have I done?" And just the devastation and the guilt. And he says, there's a shotgun in her chest, just do it. Like there's this incredible depth of humanness to him as a being that he brings to all of these different characters that I really valued.
So Joe, you want to play this part? We could do it at the Carriage House this year.
I definitely have thought of a couple of satire SNL skits with this.
I think if we just promote it as Joe Caputo is split, everyone will come.
One man ensemble.
There you go.
Structurally, I don't want to talk too much about Unbreakable or Glass because this is a split conversation, but there were some valid points brought up about the overall narrative of the three films. This is the film I like the most. I think this is the one that stands alone the best. And I think it's the one where there's just a tighter filmmaking experience and a tighter audience experience. The overall narrative of the trilogy is interesting because in Unbreakable, you spend the whole movie wondering if it's real. There's clear and present evidence that he might be unbreakable, but you're left to doubt, and doubt is like a main character in that film. It's that theme that's so large. It's like Gotham City and Batman. It's its own character. It's like any film based in New York. New York's a character. So that whole film, you're left wondering, are you actually unbreakable? Is this real? In this split, despite the horror coming down, there's a hopeful, inquisitive nature of, oh, maybe this is real. And then you're scared. So the little kid in you is scared. In the third movie, it kind of ties those both together and is like, all right, is it real? Can that happen? So there's a really cool deconstructed superhero narrative that tries to do something very, very fresh. And I think it does succeed. It's just very cerebral. It's just a very cerebral trilogy. It doesn't have that same kind of fun flair. It's not meant to, which is interesting because it's still a genre film. Mental health wise, there's definitely things I like about this film. It's one of the first times, other than Sybil, where DID is represented as more than two personalities. I love Fight Club, but it's more often the two, the good guy and the bad, the Tyler Durden and the narrator. So to see DID with multiple personalities that are different, you will have a personality that can come out and it could be a different gender than you. It can speak a different language. You don't speak Spanish. You don't understand a word. This other personality does. So it can be a very fascinating, scary condition to live with. And I found it wonderful to watch a film where the opening shot is this horrifying, graphic nightmare. But this little kid, Hedwig, is just learning from those adults. And he's very innocent. He's like, hi, everybody. And he's just saying hello to you. And it's like normal for him. It's like when the kids play soccer with the head in wartime. And they're just trying to create play and be kids amid these graphic images. I found it fascinating to watch all of these different people and the ways that the dark sides of them have infected the other sides of them. Who joins the horde and who doesn't. From a mental health representation standpoint, that's also horrifying. As an autistic male, every minor move I ever did was scrutinized, over-medicated, and anything to do with a tantrum or violence, I was punished severely, not necessarily by parents, but by systems. So I won't say his name because I don't think he deserves to be remembered, but the person who committed the Sandy Hook shooting was specifically diagnosed with Asperger's, which is what I have. And that set us back 10 years.
Yeah.
People are just now starting to look at Asperger's like it's not a shoot you up disorder. There's absolutely a fear, and it's not an unsubstantiated fear. People lost their lives.
Yeah, and I think again, Joel said a little bit was that when people were up in arms about Silence of the Lambs and this movie too, it's mostly because as a group, you don't want the negative aspects to be the thing that the audience latches onto and becomes, the poster child for your particular thing. So, so the same thing here. When everybody was the mental health community was upset about this movie, it's exactly that. I mean, this is an extreme example. And having Betty Buckley there to explain that these things do exist was certainly helpful, but at the same time, you don't want this to be the only representation.
Yeah, this isn't a story where Kevin Wendell Crumb is in college and there's this girl or this guy he really, really likes, and he goes to a party to talk to them, and then he wakes up the next day and it's because Hedwig danced at the party and now everyone's laughing at him. This isn't a story where Kevin Wendell Crumb is the lead and it's his story and his narrative and he's dealing with the slow evolution or the swift evolution of all these characters. This is a story that opens up with Dennis, that ends with the Beast, and then with finally Kevin. And of course, throughout the middle, you don't know where Hedwig stands, and you know exactly where Patricia stands. So I think that, you know, if I was going to have anything negative to say about this film, I would argue there should be a fourth, or there should have been a prequel before the prequel. It's almost impossible to satisfy both themes. It's almost impossible to say we're going to represent you in a positive light here, but still tell our dark side tale. And I think the film did as good of a job as it could have done with the very difficult task it set out to achieve.
So Joe, you don't think M. Night just latched onto this for what he thought would be a cool movie?
No, I think he showed enough intelligence, and he tried. I think the fact that the Beast specifically worships trauma is very interesting. When the Beast is kind of saying like, only the broken can inherit the earth. Like the Beast is saying like, my trauma made me beautiful and it made me strong. F you. And we've heard enough bootstrap conversations to know that that is an actual mentality. You know, I survived this, you can too, get over it. And the Beast is a conglomeration of a lot of that. And I felt that M. Night did a very good job showcasing a lot of variation. I think that by caricaturizing that, he is trying to say, you know what? Here this is not representative of everything. But there's some truth here, and I'm going to try and dole it out in a way that's non-proselytizing, because he saved all of his proselytizing for Glass. You know, I liked Glass. That movie is 80% I wonder. It's like Aristotle wrote it. It's very much a pondering, you know, get high and watch the movie and wonder if you can shoot laser beams yourself. It's very thinky.
All right, Joe. So what's your final star rating on Split?
I was committed coming into this at saying like 3.5, because I don't think it's like 4 greatest movie of all time, but I think it's a solid, well-made film. You know, I will say after some pondering, maybe it's more of a 3, just because while it's a great movie and it's strong, there are some open-ended inferences and incomplete conversations regarding, you know, the mental health community, whether this helps or hurts. And, you know, obviously film financing hasn't done a good job of creating charitable financial re-impact around topics. So it's not like 10% of this film's budget went into research, you know, from the box office. So in the absence of narrative representation and physical life representation, I'm going to say 3.
All right, Joe, you can come back because you agree with me. Mark. So now you heard all of us.
Heard it all.
Now summarize for the people.
Well, I'm really enjoying this conversation because it is wonderful how the same movie can have a different impact on so many different people here. People who thought it was boring, people who loved it, people who thought it was okay. And I really appreciate Joe's comments and his connection to the movie, because I'm coming to this from a completely different perspective, but yet a similar connection. Joe has his own reasons, whereas mine, I think everyone here knows that I'm a big sucker for anything supernatural, super abilities. I grew up, my best friend growing up, that was the girl across the street, and she had a really strange attraction to horror and serial killers. And so we watched and read a lot of stuff on you know, paranoid schizophrenics, as they were called back then, and people with multiple personalities, and just straight up serial killer stuff. So that has a place in you know, in my past, and I have an affinity to it. And then on top of all that, as I mentioned earlier, my take on it was not so much as Joe was from the mental health community. I see it as a mind-body, the creation of the beast through pure willpower. That's something that I haven't read about creating a beast, but there's a book called The Mind-Body Connection by Dr. John Sarno. Basically, people have heard of the placebo effect. There's a nocebo effect where people create diseases within themselves for various reasons and so forth. And it's all the influence of the mind on the body. The mind can help heal, it can help give disease, and so forth. And I really enjoyed Night's take on that, putting that in someone with DID, and then taking it to a supernatural, superhuman level.
Yeah.
So that all of it combined, as you guys have all said, it's not the perfect movie. It can be a little bit. I found it more creepy than slow. I just found everything in that whole the sub basement there. If you put yourself in those girls, if you were in that position, it's creepy as hell. But I'm very drawn to the movie. It is my type of movie for all those reasons. But I will say that I did hate the pedophile uncle. Anything pedophile, I just do not like that. And I forgot that I guess I blocked it out because I forgot that was in it. And as soon as I saw the flashback with the uncle, I was like, fuck, that's this movie.
I blocked it out too.
Yeah. So all in all, for me, I'm going 3 1/4 stars. Agreed, certainly not the best movie, but I would actually, as I said in the beginning, this is his best movie in 16, 17 years because I liken it to Unbreakable. Joel, as you said, I definitely like Unbreakable more than the average person, I would say. It is too slow paced for me. I mean, Bruce Willis takes 5 minutes to respond to every question. He's got to look around and breathe and whatever. So that to me, I would say Split and Unbreakable are on even grounds, I would say. But this one, I would actually put as a little bit more rewatchable for me, although I've seen Unbreakable more times because it's an older movie.
Yeah.
Okay. That is interesting that you don't even love this movie. All right.
Yeah.
So thanks for making us watch it.
That's why I picked it specifically for especially
Joel made us watch Flash Gordon. He doesn't love that movie either.
I watched Flash Gordon at like 3 a.m. one day, because I was waiting for Daredevil season 2 to drop. And I didn't realize that there was like California time. So it was like midnight and I had to wait up till 3 a.m. to watch Daredevil. And I was like, I'm going to go through my movie list. And I watched Gilbert Grape and Flash Gordon. And I was so tired, I felt high. And I was watching Flash Gordon and like, it's like Split. Like I had 3 different devils and angels on my shoulder commenting on the film as I watch it. You're like mostly asleep and you're dreaming.
Yeah.
I was like, what am I watching? And it's so popular in pop culture that I felt like I'd already seen half of the movie already. And I was like, I know this scene. I have no memory of this place.
I just think that's an interesting double feature of Gilbert Grape and Flash Gordon. So that's
it was an eclectic pairing, I will say.
All right. Well, any final thoughts on Split? And so we have at least 2 people that are looking for Glass. Aim? Are you going to watch Glass?
I would watch Unbreakable. Sure.
Yeah. I would totally want to see it again now. Again,
I was hoping to watch Unbreakable before Split and then go into Glass before we got to this.
Because you knew.
You
knew it was
quite
connected.
honestly, with my schedule, it just was not going to happen.
If you are going to watch Glass, I would definitely do Unbreakable first.
I had no idea. All right, so next Monday we are going, because next Monday is St. Patrick's Day. We're going to do a St. Patrick's Day favorite, The Quiet Man from 1952.
Oh.
I'm sorry?
What?
I said, hoping it was Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Oh, sure.
Which is available to stream if you want to join us on Hulu or Paramount Plus. And that's it. I'm Frank Gaffney. Go watch a movie.
And also with you.
Idiot.